Hi there, this is Dr. Melanie Leuty. I'm the director of the Center for Faculty Development and a professor in the School of Psychology. And I'm going to chat with you very briefly about how we can provide clear instructions to our students on our course assignments and assessments so that we can foster their success and make things easier for us. First, we'll talk about the importance of clear instructions. It goes without saying that it reduces frustration if we all are on the same page about what to do. Don't we want our students to spend time learning the material and showing us and demonstrating mastery rather than deciphering what we're asking them to do? And more importantly, I get it. I hate the emails back and forth about students asking questions about assignments. So let's reduce that frustration by making sure our assignments are clear in the first place, and so that we can all get down to the assignment itself. We know that clear instructions and getting away that frustration, confusion out of the way can actually help improve our students' learning outcomes. So then now they know what's to be expected of them, they can perform better academically versus losing points on assignments just because of confusion over the assignment itself. When students know what they're supposed to be doing, know what's expected of them, naturally they feel more engaged in what they're doing in their work. So making sure that our assignments are clear also makes them feel more present and engaged in our class overall. So what can we do to improve the clarity of our assignments? The first is creating transparent assignments. Maybe you've heard of this before. You're welcome to see the link below for more details. But a transparent assignment focuses on three things to understand the why and the how of our course assessments. First is the purpose, making it clear what the rationale for the work that you're asking them to do. Connect this to your course learning objectives, but also to other content in your curriculum, maybe the course before or after that you've completed, or more importantly, to what they're going to do for their eventual career. Having that purpose and rationale is so important to set the stage for clear instructions on what you're having them do. The second piece is a task. Do spell out explicitly what the task is to be done for the assignment, making that as clear as possible. And we'll dig into ways to do that here in a minute. And finally, the criteria. Here we're talking about how are you going to grade them. Using rubrics, clear outlines of how they'll be assessed helps clear up confusion about how much effort to put in certain areas or what things that you're looking for in order to assess their projects, papers, or other assignments. Usually sharing that rubric and having them grade their own assignments might make clear the criteria that you're asking them to put the effort in on your assignments. This seems like a natural, but sometimes we think in our head we've got all the clear details on our assignment, but come to find out we don't. Some ways to make sure that we are communicating clear details about our assignments would be providing written details. And many of us include a small blurb in our syllabus, but what about including a full page or document that outlines the steps in the process of completing that assignment and what is clearly to be expected? We can also go back to that transparent assignment and to provide some details on the rationale, the task at hand, and also the criteria. Visual aids, if they're relevant, can also be helpful. People tend to recall information better when it's presented in a visual format. Even more importantly, especially in online classes, create a short video describing the assignment rather than using stock or other materials to explain the assignment. You're likely to use in your own video explaining instructions for an assignment the same language that you'd be using on the assignment or language that you're expecting your students to use on that assignment. So even just a quick video might help dispel some myths and questions about what you're expecting of them. And finally, simplify the language. Try not to use language that haven't quite used or vocabulary used in the course, or making sure that you are explaining vocabulary that folks might not need to know prior to the assignment. It doesn't say it here, but I would also add to that, make sure that they know prerequisite tasks in order to do your assignment successfully. For example, do they know how to upload a document or create a video? Have you asked or assessed or provide some other resource so that just the mechanics of some of the things that you're asking them to do don't get in the way of the actual content that you're wanting to assess on your assignment. A good place too is to think about common examples of what your end product is. So if you're having students generate a paper, give them an example of a paper that exceeded expectations, that met expectations, or that didn't meet expectations, so they can see the quality and the differences between these levels of examples. I tend to just ask students from prior semesters of exemplary work, usually on the meet or exceed expectations, to ask if I can use their paper, of course redacted with any identifying information, as examples going forward. And then for not meeting expectations, because that's kind of awkward to ask for a student example of that, you usually make one of my own to show common places where students tend to misunderstand or not attend correctly to the details as an example that doesn't meet expectations. Another thing that you can do, if you've taught the same course or used a similar assessment a few times, you kind of have a feel for what are common misconceptions about the content that goes into that assignment, or common errors on the assignment. You might explain in a video these misconceptions and clear that up. You might have a documentation that describes common errors that happen. So for example, in one of my psychology graduate courses, I have a document that says people get usually this part wrong about APA style, and they will get it wrong even though they do a tutorial prior to the paper to help prepare and thwart some of those errors. But again, reminding them, and they can use this as a way to come back and maybe self-grade their assignment, what are common errors written down would be a place for them to also go back and make sure that they're not committing those same errors on their work. Of course, I know that many of you do this, but making sure that you ask for questions for clarification. Sometimes I know that I put it out to the whole class and say, who's got questions about this assignment I just spent 15 minutes talking about, and it's crickets. Instead, maybe having them pair up in small groups of 2 to 3 students and summarize for you what the rationale, task, and criteria are for the assignment, and then repeat it back might help you hear, are they hearing exactly what you are expecting of them? Or ask them their peers, coming up with questions to ask the instructor later. We also want to make sure that we've created an environment that's open to learning, that they don't feel criticized for asking questions or making mistakes, and that we don't respond in ways that belittle questions. And so there's lots of ways that we can do that beyond this video, but we want to set the stage that students feel like they can ask questions, but even easy things like generating those questions in peer groups and then to the instructor might be a pathway to overcome people being afraid to share or ask questions in the larger group. So what do we do next? Well, after we've hopefully tried all these strategies to make our instructions clearer, we're going to make sure that we assess that we did a good job with this. So we can gather feedback. Surely we can ask through surveys, whether that's a midterm evaluation, asking about several different assessments that we've used to that point, or a follow-up for every assignment with even just a few quick questions of like, was this clear? What questions left remained? Where did you struggle in the process of completing this project? Might be helpful. Formal conversations, discussion after people have submitted the assignments or as you turn in the assignment back to them with grading might help to clarify places or missteps that they had that they didn't share with you before submitting the assignment. And then obviously reviewing the work that they submitted. Where are you seeing places that a lot of students are losing points, that it wasn't the quality or clarity of work that you were expecting? Might say that there's some room for improvement, maybe in the instruction of that material, but also maybe in the instructions around that part of the assignment that you're wanting and the level of detail and expectations you had about that. Connected to that, we can just analyze the student's performance. We'll look at those trends on those assignments, looking for areas that they did well and areas that they need improvement to identify what are the areas that we need to probably go back and flesh out more details on that aspect of the assignment so that people are doing better in that aspect in meeting our expectations. And again, the whole goal here is that they can focus on demonstrating their mastery and understanding of the material rather than deciphering our instructions and expectations. But the last piece is we actually have to do something with that information. So we obviously, if there's areas that aren't meeting our expectations on our assignments, we can think about, was it the clarity of our instructions? But it could have been also the clarity or a lack of clarity on the actual instruction. So we have to be responsive in our teaching, and this is why it's helpful to kind of continue that reflective process in order to tailor to our students and making sure that we're clearly presenting the material, going over common misunderstandings and misconceptions, so that when they get to the assignment, just understanding the material isn't the barrier to completing that assignment. So finally, hopefully as a great instructor, you're thinking about how I can be reflective and striving for continuous improvement. I know many faculty keep personal journals or notes throughout the semester on things that worked well, things that need improvement. We use our course evaluation sometimes to go back to that, those scary student comments, to help sort of tweak, going through the kind of ups and downs and seeing what is working, where students continue to improve, what are things that I appreciated teaching, or this type of assignment really honed in on what I'm trying to assess of my students' learning, and what still needs some tweaking. So keeping that journal, keeping some notes to yourself is helpful, and making those tweaks as soon as you can, but ideally you'll have those notes to come back to the next time you teach that course to make those tweaks in order to continuously improve your work. So altogether, hopefully, as we think about the importance of creating clear instructions, we lose the barriers that get in the way of performing an assignment that are just because they're deciphering our instructions and expectations. We try to improve clarity by things using visual aids, written instructions, language that's appropriate, or we explain vocabulary. And then we use feedback to make sure that our intentions were met. We look at students' performance to adjust our expectations, and then we continue to be lifelong learners and self-reflective to improve our work over time. Hopefully this was helpul. Feel free to use some of our other CFD resources. Check them out on our webpage at usm.edu/CFD under their teaching resources. Have a great class.